Welcome to the Road to Redemption podcast with your host, Cam Williamson. Each week, Cam sets out to shatter the labels and stigmas associated with mental health awareness by giving life lessons and raw overviews of events happening around the world.
What is going on, guys? Welcome back to this episode of the Road to Redemption podcast. I'm, as always, your grateful host, Cam Williamson. It's great to be back with you. Today, we are talking about separating ourselves from our thoughts. Seems basic to some, seems extremely complicated. Until I turned 27, it was very hard, damn near impossible for me feeling, to be able to separate myself from my thoughts. Why? Very clearly, most of us identify ourselves with the thoughts that go through our head, right? It's always the internal dialogue that always has been. You've based every choice, every action, every behavior, every personality trait has all been formed. I know it sounds very faux pas, but by the voice in your head, the one that's constantly talking to you. Sometimes, if life has been unkind at times and, trauma has been a thing or, lots of reasons, our internal dialogue becomes very negative and it really stands in the way. And oftentimes you feel like, this is not diagnosing schizophrenia, that's a very serious condition, and I'm not talking about that. But it can feel like you're talking to yourself or you're having a conversation inside of your own head going, should I do this? If I do this, and then you can either catastrophize, you could have rational thinking, whatever your train of thought is. But either way, it's going to lead you to what? Who you're going to become in the next moments, in the next days, and every decision is linked to every thought you have, making you who you are. So it is your identity in a sort, but a lot of us forget that we also, when I say we, that's tough, right? Because when you go, well, if I'm not my thoughts, then what am I? Am I my body? Spiritual teachers would say no, because you, whoever's watching this video, whatever age you are, subtract 10 years from that, your body looked very different, but it was still what? You. It was still you, being the essence of what started as you and what will one day end as you. We don't know what that is, but it is directly affected and made up of that dialogue, that stream of consciousness. Well, just because it's in our head, it feels valid. If you say it to you, well, there's no one to argue it, right? So if those thoughts start to get negative or life has been unkind or, a lot of other reasons, and you find yourself in a mental funk. For me, a couple weeks ago, it was panic attacks due to a medicine reaction that I had, but I was very stuck in my own head. I could not separate myself, who I know myself to be, life and reality and years of observation, could not compete with the voice of fear, doubt, worry. And after sending myself to the hospital, which I told you guys in the last episode, I felt a great sense of power and control over anxiety, fear, and depression, where I go, those physical sensations were so intense. I had convinced myself wholeheartedly something was wrong, and nothing was. Wow. So even sometimes my body doesn't even know the right signals to send to the brain or vice versa. Even that can get wonky sometimes. So how do I know what truth is? What do I set my peace in? What do I set myself in truth? This is where a lot of people find religion. They pray to God and they surrender and they, whatever. Whatever your spiritual beliefs are, ultimately it comes to some point of surrender where you go, ultimately, I don't know, right? I don't know if I'm going to get that job. I don't know if I'm going to pass that test. I don't know if, whatever terrible thing you could imagine in life or great thing you could imagine in life. In the end of scope of everything, you don't know anything. So anytime you start to hear, voices or thoughts in your mind that start to say things like, you'll always be a certain way, you'll never be able to fix something, even on the positive side, you'll always be on top of your game. It's like, watch out for those keywords, always, never, the doomsday type thoughts, because most of those are lies. Most of those are lies. I, in learning how to separate from my own thoughts, have found that keeping your mind busy is very important, as well as keeping your body active during the day. If you have a mind that tends to race, especially towards the negative side of things, this is something I've held off on saying for years, but it's like, if you're not moving your body, and if you're not meditating with an overactive or depressed or anxious mind, it's really tough for people to listen about how bad you want to get better if you're not willing to do the most basic things. My mother, when I was in the throes of the panic attack, goes, I told her I didn't have much of an appetite, and I just couldn't, water just sounded repulsive for whatever reason. She goes, yeah, no, I get that. You feel bad now. But what if you just did the things you knew you were supposed to do anyway? Eat, drink water, take a shower, no matter how you feel about it. No matter how internally terrible you feel, what if you just did those things so that way there was a chance tomorrow you felt better? And then you start to eat little meals. You start to drink water, which makes you feel better. Then you start to walk, and then you can go out on a hike again. And it's like, oh my God, I got better because I started to do the very basic things, and I got out of my own head and listening to all the sensations. Oh, this hurts, this feels weird, this is starting to tingle, oh my God, why is that tingling? And then you just become a big ball of mess inside yourself that's completely unfounded. Or you can take knowledge that you know is founded. If I study, I'll be prepared. If I work out, I'll be healthier. If I, yada yada, go down the list. There are ultimate truths you can tell yourself, and then there's the ultimate surrender of not knowing anything. I know that if I drink water, my body will respond better. So if I'm saying that water, the taste of that sounds repulsive, well, you're just going to have to get over that because your body needs water. And sometimes it's hard in the mental health community to say you're going to have to get over that. Doesn't seem kind. It doesn't seem validating. It doesn't seem whatever. But there was a few times where my family said things was like, you're going to have to deal with that. You're going to have to feel that. That's not going to go anywhere until you feel it. And you go, man, I guess this time there's nowhere to run. The hospital's saying I'm fine. I'm not choosing to drink anymore, no matter how bad my, fear gets. So that's off the table. Because let's be real. When your thoughts get real loud, as someone who comes from alcoholism, it's a beer and a half, and now you don't really worry about anything that's going on up here. You're worried about having a good time here. And that's what I used to crave. I used to crave that feeling of being able to be in a room and just be present in it and be my most authentic, goofy, silly, fun self and not feeling like I was bothering people or whatever. But again, I let years and years of negative self-talk drive the way that I saw myself, the way that I carried myself, and then that projected onto the way that people felt and saw me, And I don't want that for you. If your mind is telling you things like you're not good, you're not good looking, you're not smart, you're not talented, you're not capable, you're not special, you're not whatever, please don't listen to that. Because like I've said in past episodes, that's probably not even your voice. And if it is, it's just whoever originally put it there, you probably just haven't talked to them in long enough. Or you talked to them too much and now it's just ingrained as your own voice in your own head. It sucks because your mind can be so mean to you. And your mind can say things that are so terribly nasty and disgusting. And, as someone who's, I've talked about it a few times, where I have contemplated and attempted suicide on a few times. I can connect to when your brain goes so low. There's kind of a fuck it surrender in there too, where you go, this thing that drives me, my thoughts, they don't seem to like me very much. So I'm kind of doomed for failure, so I might as well just go ahead and take what little control I have, which is of the fact if I'm alive or not, because it seems like that's the last thing that could get ripped away from me, and I don't want to find out what that feels like. So if I just do it myself, at least I have the control in that. But you don't realize that same voice is the one that you could go, I'm a life that's worth living. I have to figure a lot of things out, so many things out. Life, I have to figure out. I'm not going to do it perfect. I haven't done it well all the time. But then you have to look at what is. This is who I am. This is exactly who I am. Good, bad, and ugly. These are the things I'm actively going to start right now to make sure that I'm not any of the negative ways I see myself anymore, if they're important to me. And then I need to figure out which ones are other people's opinions that I need to let go of and release, surrender. And then you'll find there's this beautiful bowl of new accomplishments, new missions, new goals, new hobbies, interests, ways of seeing life, books, songs, movies, life out there that you can chase and you can pursue that doesn't involve negative, reoccurring thoughts that seem to be who we are. Because you wake up with them, you go through your day with them, you go to sleep with them, and science says, like a ton of the thoughts, most of the thoughts you have today will be the same ones you have tomorrow and the day before if you don't do something about it. So you got to throw another voice in that ring. You have to be willing to be seen as crazy and talk to yourself. Hey, we're not doing this anymore. You guys would be shocked how many times I have to close my eyes and go, we're not doing this anymore. We're not someone who panics anymore. We're not someone who's scared anymore. We're not someone who runs in the sense of we don't do things out of fear that we're going to have an anxiety attack or it's going to cause panic or whatever. You do them anyway. And if you have panic, you know you can survive it and you get through that. And then you prove to yourself that you're not going to lay down to this. And then you do it and you come out and you go, look, I made a big deal about nothing. I didn't even have a panic attack. And that voice, that other one, starts to be a little louder. So next time you go, well, I did that last time. And some would call that exposure therapy, but it's so much more complicated than just, exposing yourself in small increments to things that scare you. Because sometimes anxiety, depression, real issues, they don't have triggers. They could just come on suddenly. And that's when, like as Mike Tyson said, everybody has a plan until you get punched in the face. And that's exactly what strong emotions feel like. It feels like a punch to the face, to the gut, to the heart, to the, everything. And when strong emotions come up, that's when our thoughts become unmanageable. That's when they become like they're overpowering us, because it's usually when we feel the least in control. We feel helpless. We feel like there's no one that could possibly ease the uncomfort that you feel, or even worse, there are people that could, and they're just not. And then you add pain and insult to injury on top of it, because you have to sit there and go, I will ultimately deal with life's problems alone. Now I can get help on external things, but how I feel, how I process life, how I get through, that's ultimately on me. I have people who will hug me when I'm sad, and I have people that will give me advice when I need it. But if I'm not able to take that, process it, and put it into action and apply it, then it's no different than the wind blowing through the trees. It doesn't mean it's useless. It just means you didn't capture it. You didn't hold on to it. You didn't take a second to breathe it in and make it a part of who you are. And I hope that with this video, I've put something into a perspective for you, or I've said something in a way that clicks for you, that goes, oh, I'm still in the fight mentally. Any day that's a bad day, I can interject my own thought, a new thought, to subside a negative one. I can gain my power back. I can be strong again. Thank you guys so much for hanging out with me. I'm going out of town here soon, so this will probably be the last video you guys see from me for the week, but we'll have a fun one for you when I get back. I love you guys so much. I hope you have a fantastic weekend.